Welcome to Instant Deck Techs. The aim of this series is to give you a short, concise guide on how to build a certain deck. It won't cover every card, but we'll go through all the categories and go over the types of cards needed to make the deck work. Any card mentioned will be down in the description below. The commander of this deck is Jetmir, Nexus of Revels. It is 1 red, green and a white for a 5/4 legendary creature, Cat Demon, with creatures you control get +1/+0 and have vigilance as long as you control 3 or more creatures. Creatures you control also get +1/+0 and have trample as long as you control 6 or more creatures. And creatures you control get +1/+0 and have double strike as long as you control 9 or more creatures. This is going to be a token-based deck. We're going to want to get out as many creatures as possible so we can activate all of those abilities. So our team eventually all gets +3/+0, vigilance, trample and double strike. Before we go over our individual sections, let's quickly go over how this deck will work and importantly, how it wins. Firstly, we'll be running a plethora of super strong cards that can churn out creatures. Where possible, we're going to be wanting these effects to be on creatures themselves. In terms of winning the game, Jetmir itself does a pretty good job of this, but we'll also be running some extra buff effects so we can close out the game. Okay, firstly, let's kick off with those token makers. This is going to make up a large portion of our deck, as the wider our board state gets, the more buff effects we get off of Jetmir. We'll start off with ones that cost 3 or less mana. At a minimum from these, they need to be making at least 1 token a turn. Cards like Adeline, Scute Swarm and Torens will be among the best we have here, as they have the possibility to make multiple tokens in a turn. Having token makers at these low drops will be very important, as it means we can start generating that board state as early as possible. Once you go up to 4 or more mana, you really need those effects to be very impactful. What you're really looking for here is a board state in a can, something like Avenger of Zendikar or Hornet Queen, that can come down and give us loads of bodies, so we can get to that 9 creature number that we need to fully activate Jetmir. While most of the token makers we want will be on creatures, there are a couple of artifacts and enchantments that can do some work in the deck. To make it, however, they have to do something extra. Oketra's Monument can help us ramp out our commander and any other white creatures that we're playing. Court of Grace gives us the Monarch, so allows us to start drawing some extra cards. Felidar Retreat can also pump up our whole team once we've gone wide enough. And then, although it does take a bit of time, Assemble the Legion can become that token maker in a can that we're after. Moving over to our ramp, we'll be starting with 8 bits and then going up from there. We're going to be splitting our ramp into 2 different sections. The first section is Mana Dorks. They ramp us ahead while also putting bodies on the board. We probably want about half the ramp that we're running to be on creatures like these. The reason it's only half is so that if there is a board wipe, we don't lose everything. The other half of our ramp will be made up from Rampant Growth effects that go through our deck and get lands out and into play. These will also work really nicely with some of the landfall token makers that we've already gone over. In general, cards like Farseek, 3 Visits and Skyshroud Claim will be the best, as they go and get any non-basic dual lands that you might be running. On top of the core bits of ramp, we can also run some cards like Circle of Dreams Druid and Growing Rites of Itlamok. Cards like these that tap for an amount of mana equal to the number of creatures we have will let us have some very explosive turns. Moving over to our card draw, there are a number of different options that we have to choose from. The best bit of card draw in any token deck is Skull Clamp. Feeding a few creatures to it will be worth it, as it'll let us dig through our deck to find more token makers to replace them, as well as any answers or game-winning threats that we need to dig out. Next up is cards that reward us for the tokens that we're making. If we're not making at least 1 token a turn in this deck, then something has gone very wrong. Idol of Oblivion, Rumour Gatherer and Benny Brack's Zoologist should all have no issues drawing us an extra card each turn. In a similar vein, because we're going wide with our tokens and not tall, it'll mean we'll be able to activate Mentor of the Meek and trigger Welcoming Vampire to also draw us some cards. Then we have spells like Shamanic Revelation and Camaraderie. These draw us cards equal to the number of creatures that we control. I'm aware these could be a little win more, but the fact Shamanic Revelation can gain us a ton of life if we have our commander out and buffing our team, and then also Camaraderie further adds to that buff, are nice little additions. After those are cards that reward us for getting damage through, with Toski Bearer of Secrets and Orhan Frostfang. When we swing in with our wide board state, we are going to be getting creatures through, so these can help refill our hand. Orhan Frostfang, also giving our whole team Death Touch when they swing, will be fantastic with Jetmir, who can already give our team Double Strike and Trample. Some last bits of card draw to mention are Beast Whisperer and Guardian Project. These are always solid bits of green card draw in any commander deck. Next up is our interaction. I'm primarily going to be focusing on synergistic cards that work with the deck, but if your playgroup is more competitive, then look to run more efficient instant speed bits of interaction in this section. For me though, we're going to start with cards that remove artifacts and enchantments while also making us a ton of tokens. We have cards like Artifact Mutation, Aura Mutation and Pest Infestation. This is exactly what the deck is after, and the incidental tokens off of these effects are exactly what we want and can be all the difference. Next up are some board wipes. There have been a couple printed recently that don't target tokens, and seeing as a large portion of our board state will be made up from tokens, these can be exactly what we're looking for. After that, we have board wipes that make us tokens as they do it. Board wipes generally suck for the token player, but at least these leave something behind to help us rebuild quicker. Talking of board wipes, let's quickly talk about some ways of protecting our board. Cards like Heroic Intervention and the new and frankly awesome for this deck Grand Crescendo are exactly what we're after. We can leave the mana up for them the turn before we're planning on winning the game, and know we're going to be able to untap with our whole team. Moving over to some dedicated ways of winning the game, there's a couple of tried and true ways we can take it. First up is improving the tokens that we're going to make with Ginny Fae and Divine Visitation. The haste of the cat tokens can be very strong, and then obviously a board state of Angels is going to swing for a ton of extra damage. The next way we can win a game is by doubling the amount of tokens that we make. Cards like Anointed Procession and Parallel Lives are fantastic in these decks, but unfortunately are very pricey at the moment until at least they see a reprint. For some cheaper token doublers, we have cards like Rhys the Redeemed, Battle for Bretgard, Second Harvest and Rabble Rousing. While not pennies, they're definitely much kinder on the wallet, and can really lead to some explosive turns where we can go from killing one opponent to all of our opponents. And what goes great with all these tokens is some more buff effects. Jetmir already gives our creatures a very solid buff, but more is more. There are plenty of these effects out there. Personally, I'm a big fan of Beastmaster Ascension and Kamal Heart of Krosa, as they just win you games of Magic and aren't too expensive. Akroma, Visions of Ixodor, can also make our team really big because of all the keywords that Jetmir gives when his abilities come online. Another great staple of any token deck is Champion of Lambult. This can very easily make our whole team unblockable, and works really nicely with the buff effects that Jetmir gives. Another card that's great in a token deck is Ogre Battle Driver. The +2/+0 and haste to every creature that comes in after it is amazing, and can really catch players unawares with how quickly it can kill them. Rounding off the deck with some utility lands, we can't really run too many as we are a 3-colour deck. The main effect we're looking for on lands is ones that make us more tokens, and of those, the ones that tap for coloured mana will be preferable, so we can cast our different colours of spells. Although a colourless land, I could make an exception for Gavany Township, as it can serve as an excellent way of buffing out our team and getting through that extra little bit of damage. The rest of your mana base will be very dependent on what you have available to you. We've recently released a video with some advice on building a deck with a budget mana base, which might be of help. Until next time, please like, share and subscribe, and let us know down in the comments if there are any commanders you'd like to see a deck tech on. Thank you very much for watching.